Hi, this is The Recovering Perfectionist. I'm Claire Barton and you're in the right place at the right time. If you're starting to feel like some of your perfectionism is really getting in the way of you moving forward, getting started or finishing anything, this is absolutely the right show for you. This is rehab for your perfectionism, baby, so grab yourself a glass of wine or a cuppa and let's get stuck into it. I have got the amazing Anna Siebert with me today, and Anna is of her beautiful self-titled business, Anna Siebert, and in my words, she is a complete motherhood guru, a parenting guru, a birthing and pregnancy, and she does all things motherhood, babies, pregnancy, and all sorts of amazing things, and I'm very inarticulate in explaining that. So Anna, would you like to tell us more articulately what you do?
Sure. Wow, what an introduction.
Yeah, right.
I do work from all the way from pregnancy through birth and then into parenthood. So I've got two really distinct phases of what I do. So working with the pregnancy and birth and immediately after the birth, because I kind of all like that one continuum. And then a whole other separate bit, which is once all the dust is settled, which, usually takes quite a few months.
3 or 4 years later,
yeah. we start to go, oh, okay, now I'm needing some help staying calm. And that was my mum that just came out of my mouth, and I swore I would never say that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the two very distinct phases of what I do.
Beautiful. So for anyone listening at home, for those listening at home, Anna and I have, I guess, kind of known each other for, I don't know, probably roughly a year or so. We move around in some of the same circles. We've done a bit of work together. But most of all, I guess I've asked you to come on because I just love your messaging and I love your group, your Facebook group, and I love all of the space that you hold for mums and women to go, oh, I'm not coping, this is shit, this is too hard, I need some help, I'm not the mum that I wanted to be, I don't have time for everything. And it's that total, one of your hashtags is raw honesty, which I just, it's such a breath of fresh air in Facebook land to have a place where you can just go, I'm not coping today, and not have any judgment and not have any, some moments when that sort of thing happens, you don't even want help. You just want someone to go, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
So I guess that's sort of one of the main reasons. It's such a, I guess it's so close to my heart because I think, like a lot of mums who have businesses and little kids, I have started a business because I really want to spend more time with my kids. But then, just like in the early days, there's this back and forth between, I feel really guilty for spending too much time in my business. I feel really guilty for not spending time in my business and spending too much time with the kids, and all that sort of thing. So I guess I just wanted to sort of, have a bit of a chat about it with you and get your points. I know you've just finished your beautiful course, Calm in the Chaos, and round 2 starting early next year, which is super exciting. So I know that you are the complete doyen of all things motherhood and balance and being okay with where you're at. So tell us your stuff.
Okay. Where do I start? I guess I initially got into this because motherhood, it was a massive shock. Type A personality, and also I came from a health science and social science background, so I was into all the research and but also I had always, I'd always been looking for ways to get more connected with my intuition, and I think I got to a point really early on because my daughter, I'd worked with kids and teenagers for a long time and I knew something wasn't right. Yet everybody told me, just being an anxious first-time mum, just relax. If you relax, she'll relax and everything will be okay. But my mum radar was just like screaming at me, something's not right. And I did end up falling into postnatal psychosis even, which was incredibly, looking back on it, it was really scary how close to not making it through I was. And After the dust settled, I realised that I'd been accumulating all of this information, accumulating, and I had made sense of it. And I had this completely different perspective of parenting that didn't fit a parenting philosophy. And I think we get too caught up in some of those, like those labels or those identities, or listening to the experts. And I was looking around at these mums who were struggling, and I was just going that there's got to be a better way. And eventually people started asking me to help them do the same thing. Yeah, do the same thing for them. And in terms of balance, I think it's actually something that we never fully find. What we do find, though, it's a really strong connection with our own inner compass that shows us, okay, today I'm out of balance over here, and it's more intentional. And this bit here, the next day we're doing more of this. And we're not looking for a perfect balance in every moment or in every day, but over the big picture, everything's kind of evened out.
I love that. And I love something that's sort of come onto my radar a bit more recently is the buckets kind of theory. Like, you've got all these different buckets or cups or whatever you want to call them, and you've got to, keep filling or topping or letting out a bit. And it's kind of like managing your buckets of bits and pieces. So managing your buckets of me time and business time and financials and whatever success means to you, and family stuff. And it's the same with the children. So it's not, like you said, it's not like saying, okay, well, every day I've got to spend 2 hours on this and half an hour on this, and it's just not what it works. And I'm a really big believer in also following the energy with whatever's kind of pulling you in a direction for one reason or another, and being okay with that, and not going, oh, but I'm supposed to be X, Y, Z today. But it's about, going with kind of what feels right and what's necessary. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the whole point of it, really, because we start doing a business so that we had to be as strict as we were when we worked in jobs.
That's right.
Point.
That wasn't it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it allows us to follow our own kids' rhythms too, because every week they're doing something different. Their whole little systems are constantly evolving and growing. And, part of the reason that I, don't want to be working full-time in a day job is that I want to be able to be present to that. I don't want to only see them for a couple of hours at the end of the day and kind of miss out on that constant check-in. So, this kind of this sense of not having a scheduled balance, but having more like a rhythmic balance. And I often teach my gorgeous clients about finding that rhythm that works for you and your family.
And so what are some of the things, obviously you work with mums who probably do quite a various thing that, some of them do businesses, some of them are home full-time, some of them are in jobs and that sort of thing. Is that correct? Is there anything that you kind of find, like what happens to make the mums go, I need Anna? What's the thing? Is there a thing, or is it just an opportunity that they see, or is there often a thing that's happened that kind of says, I need some Anna love in my life?
I think it's usually some kind of critical tipping point, and that they get to a point where they're not okay to keep struggling anymore. Either they're yelling to, actually a lot of mums that come to me want help stopping yelling. And one of the incredible women that I've been working with in my Calm in the Chaos course even said that her yelling has dropped down by 90%.
Wow.
Woo!
That's amazing. And so yelling is obviously a symptom of something else that's going on.
Exactly.
Which
is? So it's never about them yelling.
Right.
It's often, so there's a combination of a few things. So we've got the kind of neural pathways that were laid down for us through the way that we were parented. So there's no way to escape that unless we start getting really honest about that and becoming aware of it and allowing our brains to find new processes. So that's one thing. Another thing is really connecting back with ourselves. And the other thing, and I think all of us are really guilty with this, especially with like all our smartphones now, is the lack of presence. And those moments creep up more strongly when we're not being present.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. I've had a couple of moments, probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks ago or something, when I felt like I had this light bulb moment, and and then knowing that it was a light bulb moment was kind of embarrassing and kind of like, oh my God, Claire, what have you been doing? Because I'd had the same sort of thing, like 3 or 4 weeks of just feeling like, oh, the kids are driving me crazy. I can't get anything done, whether it's around the house or the business or something. And they're in daycare 3 days a week and at home the other 4. And obviously on the weekends when there's my husband here as well. But on those 2 days, I was just like, oh, what is wrong with them? That was my words. What the hell, right? And I know when it was coming out of my mouth, there was a little voice going, nothing is wrong with them. Have a think about it later. And I was like, no, I can't get anything done. I was getting really frustrated. And then like I was really, really thinking about it. Like, this sounds so ridiculous now that I'm saying it in the past tense. But I was really thinking about it, like, what can I do differently? And I was thinking, maybe I need to schedule more things in. Maybe I need to make it like, right, 8 to 8:15 is book reading time. 8:15 to 8:30 is Play-Doh time. And like, that was where my head went, idiot.
Yeah.
But that's one thought that I had. Then I was like, actually, maybe I just need to not have any plans and not try and do any work and actually just sit down and play with them and do what they want to do and follow their lead and follow their energy. And guess what? And we had this beautiful day, and there was no fighting, there was no yelling, there was nothing. And just having gone through that, I felt so ridiculous for not realizing. And like, I know on a practical and logical level, I totally know that was the case. But when I was in that moment, I couldn't see the forest for the trees, and all I wanted to do was send that email. And can't you just give me 5 minutes to send this freaking email? And I was getting really angsty about it, which then they were feeding that energy and all of that sort of thing. So I think that's again where it kind of comes into that presence is definitely a massive thing. And having other things in place that means you can still be efficient and effective in other ways or at other times of the day or the times of the week or something actually makes the whole, like, more things happen anyway.
Exactly.
To get your head around it.
It is. And to take away the judgment on ourselves about that, because, you know, when the reason that we do go into that hyperdrive kind of, let me just get this done and then I'll handle you and that kind of stuff, that's a learned response. That is a pattern that we have been doing for many, many years. And it doesn't just change overnight. It doesn't evaporate magically when we give birth. And damn it. And it's actually, I find parenting is like the biggest self-development experience that we can go through. And so taking away the judgment, like, oh, as if I couldn't see it, because this is a pattern that's allowed you to survive. And this is a pattern that has let you achieve so much already in your life. And we're actually having to totally rebuild our lives around these new little people. And still find time to prioritize ourselves, because without doing that, then we end up running too dry. So incorporating new perspectives and changing the way we look at our expectations. And also realizing that some really conscious time out from our business actually is really good for our business. I find those times after, like, I've spent like a full day with my kids being, you know, really present. Sure, I'm exhausted, but my brain is like, oh, all these new things that I couldn't see before because I was so stuck in that rut of I've got to get
of moving forward. Totally. And I think part of that and it's an issue, I think. Well, it's not an issue, I shouldn't say it's an issue, but it's a part of whatever you're doing, whether it's a business or a job or parenting or relationships and that sort of thing, that it's so important. And I realize this more and more every week, to actually stop, like consciously. If you had to schedule the time in to stop and reflect and review, rather than just this, all right, I've ticked that off my list, what's next? All right, I've ticked that off my list, what's next? It's like, and I'm all for moving forward. I'm all for, you know, keeping on going and that sort of thing. But it gets to a point where you're moving forward for the sake of moving forward, and there's not actually any reason for it in the end. And like, and I've gotten into this thing, and, you know, the first year of my business has been such an eye-opener for this sort of thing, and self-reflection, and going, wow, like, you know, you spend 2 or 3 weeks going, I've gotten all this stuff done, why am I not where I'm supposed to be? And then you realize all the stuff that you've been doing wasn't moving you towards your goal. And that's cool, it's all been a part of the process. But, you know, especially, you know, when you're parenting as well, that you've got these plans and these ideas of how a certain thing is going to go, whether it's an event or an outing or, you know, a period of, you know, your children between 6 and 12 months or something like that. And you know, you get to the end of it sometimes and you think, what the hell just happened? like driving your car and not remembering how you've driven home or something like that, and you can't quite work it out. So that's sort of time to stop and reflect and be okay with whatever's happened, but use that information in terms of your decision making and your behaviours in the future.
Cool. And changing the perspective around what productivity is in parenting. Because I think one of the things that we struggle with the most when we become parents, when we've come from working full-time, is that we no longer have measurable outcomes.
And you don't get those what did they used to be called, performance reviews and KPIs.
No KPIs.
Well, they're still alive at the end of the day, and if they've had a shower you should get a bonus, really, right? You
totally should. We definitely need a lot more bonuses. But and the reason I think we struggle is because there are so few people that are providing a different framework to sort of see parenting, and there needs we can't tick box our parenting, because our kids they're people, and when we come from that really task oriented list making, oh my god, like it really, really threw me. And I even tried to work out how to, do the most efficient nappy change.
Of course you did.
It doesn't work. And at the end of the day, I had to totally about-face. Actually, it wasn't about-face. It was really blowing open that whole idea about what does success in parenting mean to me. And for me, it was, I wanted to provide my kids with a childhood that they didn't have to recover from. As much as I love my parents, and as much as I know they did their absolute best, I've spent a long time, and I'm still recovering from my childhood. And I know that there is no way for me not to fuck them up somehow. That's just it's not going to exist. I'm a human, and there's always going to be something. There's multiple things. Like really, probably, I'm very happy to fork out for their counselling when they get older. But at the same time, I want to do everything I can to minimise that. And on the flip side of that, because obviously, if we focus on what we don't want to do, that's what we end up creating. The flip side of that is that I want to raise kids that are secure in themselves and have empathy and compassion and know what they want, and they know how to use the resources around them in compassionate and kind ways to get those things done. And so when I worked that out, that's when I went, oh, okay, so this, all of, like, I mean, I used to teach neurological development classes for kids. I, as part of my social science degree, had studied some developmental psych. I majored in anthropology in my social science degree, and there were a whole lot of things that I was pulling together on top of all the research that I've been reading in my kids' first 12 months of life. That's all, if I could show you the number of research papers that I read through. I just went, oh, right, this is kind of like this is part of the missing link. We're missing this other end game that's not measurable. And you can't do a research paper on this because it's not measurable.
It's not a thing.
No.
So I think the two awesome things that I just want to pull out of what you've just said is that you've got to understand, and it's probably a process as well, what successful parenting is to you and what that actually means to you. And what successful parenting means to you won't be the same as what the successful parenting means to the next person. And that's totally okay. That's right. As long as you're cool with it, that's cool. And that may be something that also evolves over time, or it changes a little bit. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to like write it down and that's your end game sort of thing. It's always going to be a moving thing. And I think the really important thing, or the thing that is like a real message to tell people, is that no matter what you do and how good your intentions are, something will go wrong, and your kids will probably blame you for something at some point in their life. But like you said, if you know that you've got that sort of inner compass and you've got those values and the thing that's really important to you, then you've done everything you can. And
that's right.
I had a similar, well, not similar, but I did some hypnotherapy and psychotherapy and regression therapy a couple of years ago for a completely different program. But some of the stuff that came up there was stuff that had to do with my parents. And as an adult, I now that I remember those things, I completely understand why they did what they did, and I would probably do exactly the same thing because they were trying to protect me and they were trying to, look after me and whatever. But as a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old or whatever, when it happened the first time, it was quite damaging or scary or traumatic or whatever, and that has then somehow stayed with me. And then since sort of understanding what that process had looked like for me, I was over-analysing every single little thing that I was doing with my kids because I thought, oh my God, every time I look at them, if I make eye contact with them wrong, or if I use the wrong tone of voice, or God, if I smack him on the bum, or I went through this whole thing where I was almost too scared to do anything with them. But that wasn't very effective either because they're little and they have to do lots of things for them
too.
So I think what you just said there about about that sort of thing is really hit home with me, and I think that's a really important message that as long as there's a inner compass sort of stuff and doing what feels good and right for you and for the direction that you want to take your parenting and what that feels like for you as a person as well as for a parent as well as how you might affect your kids is all part of the package.
Yeah. And if I can talk about that just a little bit more, there are a couple of things that are important to take away from that. One is that an action might be necessary, but there are ways to deliver said action with love and compassion. So there are ways to protect our kids and still do so without them feeling necessarily terrified. Sometimes it's unavoidable, and we, that's just part of life. And our kids also do need to experience to some degree some of those moments to help build resilience. Having said that, they still need the soft place to land, and they need time to process what it is. And it's not so much all of the events they experience, it's kind of the time that they're then allowed to let go of those big feelings and process what's happened. And something that has always stuck with me is I have done a couple of Circle of Security courses, which is fabulous little parenting mini-series run based on attachment research, not attachment parenting, it's attachment research and theory. And that is that we only need to be good enough parents. And what good enough means is that across all of the areas of needs, so we've got lots of different need subgroups. So we've got like emotional needs and physical needs, we've got nutritional, there are all kinds of stuff that we need. We only need to get across the board 30%.
Excellent news.
To raise well-attached
decent
kids.
children.
Okay. And when the first time I heard that, I was like, I can do 30%. And then I realized my version of 30% was like an average. So I could do like 100% this and 0% this. And when I revisited the course about a year later, I was like, I actually need to pull back on this thing that I do kick ass. And I actually need to work at developing my own skills. And this is where, just like we upskill for business, every time we come across something that we need to raise our game with, we do a course. You can do the same with your parenting. So finding those areas where we're not quite hitting the mark, and allowing ourselves to not be perfect in some of those other areas and allowing ourselves the growth in the ones we need help with.
I absolutely love that so much. And I think I have also recently kind of had this, I guess, realization that, when you have a baby and everyone says, shame they don't come with an instruction manual. Everyone says that, right? Shame they don't come, or I don't know what I'm doing. You didn't come with an instruction manual. You get that guilt trip from your parents too sometimes, right? And I think, and it sounds so ridiculous, but that it's almost become a bit ingrained with probably everyone, but certainly with me. And then when I started seeing, I guess when I kind of became a parent and all of these things started coming into my world about parenting courses and positive parenting, all these different phrases, I was like, what? don't need a course. You just like, what are you talking about? And now I'm like, oh, yeah, that's and my husband and I have talked about it heaps of times. It was like, I just don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to handle this new phase or this new behavior or this new emotion that I'm having in response to that behavior and that sort of thing. And I really feel like I need some help, and I need some coaching or some strategies. Like, I've watched a few webinars and that sort of thing with people who are talking about parenting, and 50% of it, sometimes you go, yep, I reckon I'm doing that already. And then there's the other 50% you're like, oh, that's so good. I'm definitely going to do that. And it's definitely really helpful. But like you said, I think it's that kind of thing where it's maybe a bit of pride and a bit of like, oh, I don't need someone to tell me how to parent, or and so many people either want to be exactly like their parents or want to be exactly the opposite they were parented. There's no middle ground usually.
Yeah. No.
But there are experts who do know so much more about, child development and that sort of thing. And one thing I think I've really struggled with is my anger. And I've never dealt well with anger because I've never really felt angry. Like, I'm more likely to get disappointed and, a bit pissed off and a bit, sulky or something. But I've never really felt a lot of anger. And so when I had, my kids are almost 4 and just over 2. And when the biggest one started getting to, I don't know, he was about a year, I had this moment of going, oh, shit, now I've got to start parenting him. I don't just have to make sure that he doesn't crawl outside of the house or, stick something in the PowerPoint. I've actually got to start parenting him and doing, some discipline and doing some more teaching. And it's not just about sitting around reading books and going and going about how cute he is. But then that other kind of behavioural stuff started pushing my buttons or really started getting me riled up. And now I know it was because I felt this real loss of control, and I am a totally self-confessed control freak. But I didn't, it just made me angry. But because I'd never really dealt with anger before, I didn't know what to do with it. And I smacked him on the butt once, and then I called my husband straight away in tears, like sobbing. I've just smacked him. And I was so devastated with myself because I'd always said, I'm never going to be a smacker. And all these things. So, back then and certainly now, if I had, I guess, that sort of understanding of someone who I knew I could call in and say, I don't know what to do, help, please. But I don't, I just think your business and the stuff that you do and the stuff that you talk about is so freaking on point and so needed, and I just love it. So anyway, thank you. Feel. So I just think it's really important. I think, for so many reasons, about just giving yourself permission to be cool with wherever you are and understanding, your own processes and your own needs, as well as that of your kids, and how you can, if you're doing a business from home and that sort of thing, how you can make it a bit more harmonious for yourself, for your kids, and the rest of the family who's got to deal with you and your crazy.
That's right. And it does seem like a lot of the parenting advice out there is really prescriptive, and it only fits particular circumstances, and you have to fit a kid that fits whatever they're doing. And what gets lost out almost every single time is somebody in the equation. So they're either so focused on looking after mum that it's okay to call your kids total shits and to treat them actually quite abusively. And some of the stuff I've seen online, even by quite public people, that could only be described as public humiliation and shaming. And I think we forget that our children are people, and yes, it can be. It's like they pull us right to the very end, and and I shared on my business page one time about a text message between two girlfriends, and it said, that's it, I'm selling my kid on eBay. And the friend messages back, nah man, you made him Etsy. And,
love it.
And they do really push us to that extreme, but that doesn't give us the right to then resort to like really quite abusive strategies. Having said that, some of the other camps then require us to sacrifice ourselves on the altar of glorified motherhood, and we lose out in the equation, and then eventually our kids lose out too, because we cannot be the parents we want to be if we're not investing in both ourselves and our kids.
Totally. And I think that martyrdom thing is such a subculture almost, that and I don't really know I do know where it comes from. I guess it comes from guilt and some other place, I suppose. But it always sort of strikes me. And I think my dad actually said it to me in the early days when I was getting like an hour's sleep every 24 hours and my eyes were hanging out of my head and I had postnatal depression and all that sort of rubbish. And he, I think, said something like, you don't have to be a martyr. Like you can go to the shops. I'll look after the baby. You can go to the shop. And I went to the shop. I went to do some errands and I was planning on being out for 2 hours. And I think I was gone for about 20 minutes. Yeah. You just go and spend some time, like just go and chill for a little while. But I had this overwhelming feeling like, I don't know, guilt or like I was going to be judged if I wasn't 100,000,000,000% focused just on my baby. And if I took a shower in the morning, that was kind of luxurious. And I was being selfish, but it's that filter, and I think it's a process that probably most people go through to some extent or another. Most mums go through. So gosh, it's crazy scary, and I wish that you'd been around when I was in my world. Anyway, I know you were around, but
the good news is that nothing is hardwired. So yes, those first 3 years are pretty critical because what's happening, the reason they talk about the first 3 years being critical is because when we're born, a lot of our nerves aren't myelinated yet. And that process finishes at about age 7, but has like a lot of it's, by 3 is sort of done. And part of the idea of it being critical came from the concept that our brains form and then they stay like that forever. So you've got this teeny tiny window where you have to get everything right, otherwise you keep the
no pressure.
Yeah, that's right, no pressure. And by the way, we're not going to actually help you do this. We're just going to expect you to be super mum.
Just go away and don't fuck
you failed,
okay?
You suck. Yeah, next generation. And so the good news is we actually know that our brains are plastic for the rest of our lives. And yes, our kids' brains are growing and developing, and we do have a really amazing opportunity to set them on a really positive trajectory. But we can't do that unless we ourselves have been through that kind of changing ourselves.
Yeah.
And most of us, like we hear about detoxing before you get pregnant, making sure you're fit and things that you should be eating before, like to conceive and then while you're pregnant, and no one talks about in the mainstream media about the emotional preparation for having kids and looking at your own formative years, like your pregnancy, your birth, your first 3 years, and the kind of neural processes that happened in that, and helping us to create more of a clean slate leading into that.
Wow.
So given that most of us are quite wonderfully imperfect, the good news is that our kids' brains keep growing and changing. And so we've got, it's never, ever, ever, ever too late. We've got opportunity for their whole life, to keep being able to inject them more positivity and help their brains, process the stresses. And that's really what it comes down to is we don't want our kids to go through life with absolutely no stress.
Right.
Because when they encounter it, they'll have absolutely no way to deal with it. Yeah, that's right. We want them to be able to encounter the stress, process it effectively and release it. And we're kind of our role as parents, I see, is to kind of guide our kids through that process.
And also lead by example, I suppose, if we've got good processing mechanisms, not just guilty, bottling it up.
Words mean nothing.
Yeah, that's it. Show, don't tell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
You see
and that's why they don't do what we say. They do what we do.
Good reminder.
It's pretty, when they start quoting us and you see us doing that same body language, or it is a really good reminder. And it's not to take that and let it drive into our heart and feel like failure as parents. It's to go, oh, this is a good mirror, this is a good reflection. Where's my trigger? What's going on for me that this is a pattern? And so using it for positive rather than for shaming.
So I want to come back to that. But first of all, I just want to ask, you mentioned about that whole kind of pregnancy and pre-birth preparation in the mental sense and that kind of getting ready emotionally. And I've talked about just about anyone who will ever listen. I feel the same sort of thing. Like I feel like I was so well prepared for I knew everything through my pregnancy. I was very involved in everything. I read lots of articles, books, talked to lots of people, talked to the doctors and the nurses and the midwives and all that sort of thing. I totally knew about the pregnancy, the labour, the birth. Like I felt like I was practically midwife. Hashtag practically midwife. Not really, but you know what I mean. Like I was totally across that. And then I left hospital 7 hours after my first child was born. It was 9 o'clock at night when we left. And I remember we put him into the car and we kind of both just looked at each other like, is someone coming to check that we've done this right? Did they actually just let us leave the hospital with this baby? And then we were starving, so we got some food on the way home, and then I didn't eat it because I was so worried about what was going to happen the next day, if you know what I mean. And so I didn't touch it. But then we were at home and our dog was here and the two of us were here and the baby. And it's 10 o'clock at night and we're like, what, do we have to feed it now? Do we put it to bed? Like what? We had no idea. And it was that moment of going, oh, I totally forgot to work out this part, and they literally just sent us home. And someone came, like the midwife came the next morning to show us a few bits and pieces, but it was certainly nothing extraordinary. And then the rest of the, you work it out or whatever. But I just remember having this overall feeling of, what the fuck do I do now? I didn't even have a starting point. We had the nappies and we had the nursery, but I didn't know what to do with it. It looked pretty, and I probably put it on Pinterest because I was a perfectionist, and it was. But I bet it was to do with this little human that they'd sent me home with, and there was no preparation for that. And I guess, I really feel like that's a massive missing piece, and that the emotional part as well as the practical part is massively missing. And then the parenting part that actually comes after you've just kept them alive and they're not a baby anymore, the parenting stuff is a completely new kettle of fish. And then the parenting and the different relationship with your partner or with your family or with your friends, and it's just such a rabbit hole, isn't it? So I think it's a massively missing part. And you've got a course around that as well, haven't you?
No, I do one-on-one stuff. Oh, yes.
One-on-one
pregnancy stuff. So preparing for birth, I do have a course on that. But generally, like all of that emotional stuff is kind of one-on-one. I think because people have such different levels of normal.
Yeah, cool.
But it's good idea. I should probably bundle something up and send it out.
All right. So I think to wrap up, have you got any sort of top tips that you would give to mums, whether they're doing a business or competing bits and pieces? Like what are your sort of top things or some of the top issues that you see that you can overcome in the next couple of minutes on the podcast?
Sorry, I lost you that last.
Sorry. What would be your top couple of tips of what mums can do if they're feeling that sort of overwhelm, or if they're really trying to juggle things and not feeling quite themselves? Or what are some of the most common things that kind of come up for your clients, and what are your top, I suppose, fixes?
Sorry, what they come up for my clients and
your top fixes for them.
Okay. So the top things that come up, probably that they're really struggling with the yelling part. That in itself is actually really complicated because, like we talked about before, it's a symptom. But often there is a little pause in between seeing white and the sound coming out of our mouth. And there's a kind of like little gap where time stops still. If you can grab that pause and hold on to it for dear life, then that often stops us from the yelling happening, and gives us a moment for our rational brain to click back in. Dan Siegel talks about us flipping the lid. So this is our pretend brain, and we've got our brainstem, which is very primitive, and then we've got the limbic system, which is all our emotional and memory processing, and then we've got our very rational brain on top of that last night. So the rational brain in that moment when we start yelling, it kind of like it disappears. So we kind of flip our lid, and we're all emotional. If you can grab that moment, often that's enough to stop the yelling, but it's not going to stop necessarily the process that leads us to yelling in the first place. If you're feeling really overwhelmed, reach out to people that you can trust, not who are going to either bombard you with advice, and I do tend to do that a little bit, sorry everybody, but that are just going to hold space for you and let you vent. But also, and not going to let you descend into, I'm an absolute failure, my kids are absolute shits, and this was, you know, allowing you to experience the emotion really honestly, but also letting you hold the perspective. Because sometimes it's just getting it off our chest. It's the shared experience.
Oh, totally.
One of the biggest issues is that we've lost the village, and this is a way of, you know, creating that virtual village.
Yeah.
And then also making sure that you are paying attention to yourself. Are you getting any time alone? Are you getting alone time with your girlfriends? Are you getting alone time with your partner? Where is your identity outside of your children?
It's so gold, and I can't wait to do some work with you in the new year. Definitely, I'm
awesome.
Super excited about it. I've really gotten to the point recently with a 3-nager and a terrible 2er. I know I'm not supposed to use those things, but seriously.
Just quickly, the brain processes in 3-nagers is actually it's very similar to what happens in teenagers. So
right, I'm so excited down the track. Then it's gonna be great. No, I mean, I must say, my kids are pretty good. They have their moments, definitely, but I think and I know retrospectively, it's my stuff. It's my shit that I need to, I don't know, make some changes with, and make some decisions and some strategies, rather than just trying to kind of do everything. So I'm really excited to get working with you next year. So if anyone else who's listening wants to get in touch or follow you or lovingly stalk you or work with you, obviously there'll be some links down in the show notes, but is there anything coming up for you that you want to quickly talk about now?
Yeah, sure. I am about to start running another series of webinars, so some stress webinars and some parenting webinars. The links for them haven't been finalised yet, so if you're interested, you can just email me at hello@annasiebert.com.au, or you can stalk me on Facebook, because all of those details will be up there too.
All over there as well. Awesome. Well, it's been absolutely just beautiful talking to you. I've been mentally trying to prepare myself for this all week, because I really thought that this was going to be the one that I was going to cry in, and I'll probably go away now and have a little bit of a moment, because it just gets me so ranty and so emotional about the parenting and the journey and the story and all of that sort of thing. So I love that you've created some space for me and everyone and anyone to share that and to be totally beautiful. I just want to reach through and give you a big cuddle. But thank you so much for coming on today, and
so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Chatting with you again soon.
Excellent. I do too. Thanks, Claire.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.